Hello, I'm Notepond and I'm doing pixel art also in public space. And you're listening to the Scene World podcast.
What's up, everyone? It's the Scene World podcast. I am Derision of RPG and Longshot, and that over there is Nafcom.
It's Nafcom.
Of People
of Liberty.
Yeah, he's still in that.
Bukoto Force and Scene World Magazine.
There you
Which
go.
you forgot because I'm a member
Yes,
of
I
Scene
am.
World Magazine
Well, I was
as
just going
well.
by the demo groups. I was in. I
Ah.
left out vandalism as well because it's not a demo.
Oh.
The reason we're going by our handles this time is because in a minute we'll be talking to Demoscene, the art of coding, in which we will be talking to Melkor, Kudrix, Flopine, and Unjello, who are all
Nice.
That's their Demoscene handles. We'll be getting more into who they are, what they're doing, and why this is important in a little bit. Before that, I got a couple of pieces of news.
Nice. Keep them coming.
Yes. So I will begin with number one is we talked about the Kung Fu Flash cartridge a while back, a couple podcasts ago. I don't know when that was exactly. And my gripe was that it was PAL only, didn't work on NTSC.
Right.
Well, it is now. There's a new version out. I'm seeing it on the Future Was 8-Bit, which is one of my favorite places. And there is a PAL and an experimental NTSC version.
Experimental.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
The NTSC version is experimental, so you can order it now in NTSC, and I'm seeing it also on. There's a an NTSC version available on eBay from Commodore Forever. So
Which are American, which
yes,
makes
they
sense.
are American. Yes. So I don't know how experimental that is. I don't see anything in the description about it being experimental, but we will put a link in there for where you can find that again, so people can check that out and decide whether they want to get it.
Because we are Scene World, we are always happy if people decide the NTSC part of the world.
Yes, exactly.
Which is why we are called Scene World.
Yes. Piece of news number two is the C64 Winter Game Development Competition 2020 that we talked about way back when. And at the time we said there's plenty of time to get your stuff in. People got their stuff in. Yeah, people got their stuff in. And they have announced the winners. Number one,
Nice.
the number one is called Fold'em 2.
Nice.
This is not at all right. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Let me redo that. Number one.
Okay, we have some...
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's just the way the website is laid out. It makes it look weird. You'd expect it's odd. Number one is called Space Planters by Wilfred. Next one is Cheesy Trials. It's kind of a mousetrap game for the VIC-20. After that is Underwater Basket Weaving, also for the unexpanded VIC-20. There's another VIC-20 game called Rainfall. A lot of VIC-20 things here. There's a lot of games that have been released. I will punch it in the direction of the website because figuring out exactly the website's laid out a little bit funny, and I'm trying to read these off, and we've redone this about 7 times now because I keep messing it up. Although there was a late entry. I want to point out the deadline was passed, but they allowed Ernst Neubeck to submit his puzzle game Fold'em 2 after the deadline, which has title music by our very own Richard Bayless.
Of course, I know they are working together.
Yes, so that's pretty cool that our own guys are in there. Moving on from that, while we're on the topic of contests, the 2021 Basic 10-Liner Contest is on. So
that's normally something by Dr. Wuro, right?
Yes, perhaps it is not this time.
Not this time. Oh my God.
And I might actually enter this because Basic is one of my jams. So
it's Basic.
Yeah. Last year they had 174 entries. So That's pretty bitchin'. They take entries from all 8-bit computer systems. With the only kind of restriction is that it has to be the built-in BASIC. Although there are other categories where you can maybe use extra stuff. Yeah.
For the 64, Simon's Basic was the
Yeah,
shit
yeah.
back in the day.
Way back in
Because
the day.
because you could do wonderful drawing cycles and other stuff.
Right. So there's a couple of categories. One is Pure 80, which is to program a game in 10 lines, which has a maximum of 80 characters per line, with abbreviations allowed. Which, if you ever programmed in BASIC on the C64, you know that you can break that 80 character limit by abbreviating when you do the coding. Although in that category, only the factory built-in BASIC variants are allowed. Then there's the category Pure 120, which is to program a game in 10 lines with a maximum of 120 characters per line, abbreviations allowed. Then there's the Extremes 256, which is to program a game in 10 lines with 256 characters per line. And then the category Shao, which is to code a program in 10 lines. The program could be a demo, a tool, or an application.
Nice.
So that's there. We'll put a link to where you can check out the rules to that. And finally, today, the last piece of news I got is that Matthew Clark has been developing a new golf game for the C64 called Top Hole Golf. And the source code is open. It's open source, and is hosted on GitLab.
Nice.
So there's a lot of customization. You can change gender, skin color, different clothes for your characters. You can do a single screen game session. You can assign joysticks 1 and 2 to any players. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this.
You actually could make a drinking game every time I say nice in this news.
Yes. I honestly, you don't need to be here. All I need to do is just have a recording of you saying nice, and then just pepper that throughout the second audio track, and it would be perfect.
Nice. And then,
yeah.
then you alter this pitch a bit. Nice.
Exactly. So the game is already playable, and it looks complete, but there's no background music. But that could be a design choice. Says vintage is the new old, because golf matches are generally not particularly noisy.
I would totally dig a brawler kicking game track while I'm golfing and getting a hole in all in one.
You've never played Ultimate Miniature Golf. My friends and I, when we were younger, we invented a game called Ultimate Miniature Golf, which took miniature golf and incorporated hockey rules.
Wow.
So there was like everybody was basically playing at once, and there was checking and potentially fights, and
right.
Yes, full contact, extreme miniature golf. It was pretty interesting.
And now pair that with Samantha Fox Strip Poker.
Yes.
And then you have a game for all kinds of customers.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I got. We'll make this one. Yeah, this is a pretty quick news thing. We got a couple of podcasts coming out kind of in rapid succession. So we are saving some news. Yeah, we're not going full on with the news sections because we need something for next week or in 2 days from now. So that's what we've got right now. So
nice.
Why don't we go now? And since we've talked for several minutes, and go talk to Demoscene, my peoples, my background. We've been fighting to get the Demoscene. I've been fighting to get the Demoscene since we started this.
Yeah, I mean,
podcast.
we had some appointments, but there were some last-second pullings from the appointments. What can you do?
Yeah, but now finally we're talking to demo coders.
But hey, people. I mean, at least we got the Russian Demoscene, guys. So it's not like we never spoke about the Demoscene.
Right, true,
but not from the European standpoint.
Yes.
And now we have Poland, Germany, Switzerland, and France.
Yes. Next will be the U.S. Eventually we'll get some of my own very own American brethren, possibly group mates in this thing to talk about the American Demoscene, because that would be awesome.
Perhaps.
Because we live in a little bubble of our own here in the U.S. and Canada, of North America, NTSC land. It would be nice.
So let's jump to the big bubble then, and let's talk to them. Today, we are having another interview round with a lot of guests today, and that would be from the Demoscene, and hence we are going with Demoscene's handles this time. So we have Unjello from Poland. We have Flopine from France. We have Tobias, Melkor, and Kudrix from Germany. So nice to meet you all, guys.
Happy to be here.
And
nice.
Of course, that's Nafcom from Germany as well, and I'm Derision from the U.S. But
exactly.
We're not the ones being interviewed.
That's true. Yeah. Alrighty. So we are talking today about this broad topic, art of coding. And we actually mentioned this briefly in one of our earlier episodes in the news section, that you are trying to make the Demoscene an UNESCO worthy thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. First in one country, and then in more countries, and then hopefully, everywhere. Yep.
And I guess all our guests are involved in this process from the different perspectives, countries, right?
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. And is everybody a coder? That's my question here.
Guilty as charged.
Okay.
I'm a coder, yeah.
And what can I? What machines?
Andre, you are as well, right?
Not really. I'm an IT guy at heart.
Okay.
But from an education, I'm from a different sector. So I'm into business administration. So I have a PhD in business.
Oh, okay. Well.
Still, I'm a IT guy at heart. I have done a lot of coding on the C64 in my early childhood days, basically. So.
Well, then you're a coder, man. Then you definitely qualify. Because I was a coder on the 64, getting there on the Amiga. What machines are you guys? Like you just said, you Andre, you were a C64 coder.
Yeah, well, I've a couple of things in my archive, so to say. So I try to boot them up once in a while. Mm-hmm. I actually, from a time perspective, I have not too much freedom to go into coding and stuff like that these days. I usually try to make myself useful in promoting the initiative Art of Coding in conferences or in articles and stuff like that. But if I have some time again, I will definitely go back to some coding. Most probably on the C64. I have a couple of those lined up, awesome. And they are always ready to be worked on. Yeah.
Nice. So how about the others? What's your platform?
I'm a PC coder and also a bit of assembly on Game Boy.
Oh, awesome.
Game Boy. Oh.
Yeah.
There we go.
I tried to, at least.
Also demo productions?
Yes, I've never shipped it. One day, I hope. But yeah, I started a demo on Game Boy.
Nice. Release it on cartridge someday.
Yeah.
I hope to, yeah.
Old school.
Nice. So how about the others?
So I started at ZX Spectrum at late 80s, but it wasn't really Demoscene, it was just programming. And then since like 91, to most Polish the Demoscene's despair, I'm actually pure PC. I never had an Amiga stage.
Oh.
So yep, it's just PC all the way.
Never too late, man.
Finally, I'm not alone. I also skipped the Amiga.
Yeah, on my end, actually, Amiga was my main part where I felt home. I mean, I was a little bit too young for the full C64. I mean, yes, I joined the scene in 91, 92 and played games like in the 80s, but so my main time was really Amiga. But actually, I wasn't a coder. I mean, I learned Pascal and stuff like in school and like couple of things in that direction, but I was first a modem trader, so and then like phone phreaking, that kind of stuff, so the fun stuff till 94, because 94 was like the time when many of my friends got also busted and people were checking like the legal challenges, and also the scene was splitting around that time from the illegal times, or at least mostly. So around 94, that was like in Germany, it was like Cebit. That's where many people were busted at home, and that was also where actually our group, Howjob, which was founded in 94, was going fully. Was a full Demoscene group, so completely not illegal. And the group before I joined was Agnostic Front, and that was mostly a mix of Cracker Group and also intros demos a little bit.
Now you said that you were taught Pascal at school. Did you actually learn Pascal?
I mean, I learned it. Good. Yes. Being taught and learning. Oh yeah, big difference.
Because
Story of my life.
They
actually
taught me Pascal in school as well, and I can assembly language on a C64, not a problem. I can do that with my eyes closed. Pascal.
Actually, I was. Yep.
Although
just
to be perfectly honest,
Yep.
the T-Vision UI library was by far the best UI library I've ever done anything until like quite recently, to be honest.
That's amazing. But in the end, I never really applied it as a coder. That's true. So I was always, from the early days on, I was always the guy who was inviting sceners to the basement of my parents and where we gathered, etc. And it was, in the end, all this, I just enjoyed always to be around people who are creative and who are from different domains and come together. And actually that role in the scene also developed actually into a job later on. So I now work on conferences with game developers, actually bringing developers together. Cool. So, but that started really in the demo scene, so the mindset and the people around.
Very nice.
It's interesting that you mentioned the split and the changing of the demo scene. I mean, if you look at the demo scene groups I remember as a kid, there are not many on the Commodore 64 at least that are still around from the old days. One example would be Triad, that I remember as a kid trading cracked games from Triad with that effective intro, in front of the games, but they are still around nowadays, mainly doing demos, but many other groups from the early days that were into cracking and stuff, they are not really around anymore. There must have been a cut somewhere.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people got snagged. I remember back in, I guess it was mid-90s, I guess, people were just... I worked on a disc mag that ended because the main guy got busted for cracking games.
Probably different story everywhere, but an open secret, I guess, is that in Poland, at least two major game companies were founded by the people that were at the computer fairs trading games in the 90s. So they're doing good.
Yeah, I think this also shows the constant evolution the scene is undergoing. I think what you just pointed out is one of the major tipping points, even though this may have even occurred gradually, that it's coming from this so illegal kind of mode to more artsy and cultural mode. And I think this was also not something that came overnight, and people just decided, well, we now switch the sides and just do the art stuff. It kind of evolved, and this was one of the eras where it basically became from the cracker scene, the demo scene. But maybe Melkor can add some more context to that, because I think there's also lots of publications from a scientific point of view that are exactly dealing with that evolution of the scene. And this is also what makes it so valuable for us as the Art of Coding initiative, that we can in fact show that this has been around for quite a while and has a heritage of its own, and has now transitioned to something completely different, and is so inclusive and multicultural, which was not foreseeable at the point when it was basically invented.
Yeah, I think the important thing is really that it's, if you understand something as a culture, then it means it's living, breathing, it's changing, it has many forms. And that's, I think, as we are now talking about the scene, what's something which was super important for us from the beginning on, was we don't define the scene, because the scene is decentral, it's self-organized. Every scener has a different history, actually, in each country, in each group even. Just one example, our group Howjob was part Finnish, part German, at least, and then many, many other members in France and Hungary, many other countries. But our story, if you tell our story, or we tell our story, it's completely different if compared to the story of TSI members. And even the TSI members have all different stories in the scene. And so this is super important, because that was when we started this initiative, to bring the Demoscene or enlisted on UNESCO cultural heritage. There was, at least from some sceners, there was the concern that we might try to define and put it into a box and put it into a museum, in the sense that it's done its history. But that's super important also to UNESCO, actually, that they say no. We actually it has to be a living, breathing thing. It might have some age issues, but it is a living, breathing thing. It's renewing itself, and that's what also is one of the thoughts why UNESCO has even these applications. Actually, they want to help cultures or cultural forms which are maybe at risk to lose its preservation or to lose its culture, to help that a little bit via visibility. I mean, we come to that probably in a second or later on.
What I've noticed from my point of view, when I had this idea of doing this scene world thing 21 years ago, we had back then we had a guest book, and suddenly we had guest book entries from somebody in Peru, and he was like, "Wow, finally somebody is doing something to unite the European/Canadian American demo scene into one thing." And at this point, before that, I even didn't know that the Commodore 64 was a thing in Peru. I wasn't aware. And the internet didn't have much information, let alone in Spanish or English. Mainly it was in Spanish, even if there was something, So this is how we got our graphic guy from Peru, because he was finding us on the internet at 21 years ago, and he is a member ever since. So that was quite nice. So we usually have represented here France, Poland, Germany, which are among the 3 big European demo scenes. But I would wonder, have you thought about approaching, the border demo scenes that is not much known of, like Peru or Russia?
Well, I would argue that Russian demo scene is not really border. I mean, they do have their flavor, and it goes back to post-Soviet bloc and Soviet bloc, and the fact that the Spectrum is basically the I guess the most popular platform.
Yeah.
But it also goes back to the fact that it was easy to assemble. Like they had even bigger issues that we had in Poland. Kokomo, the embargo on computers to the Soviet bloc. In Poland, well, Poland never really obeyed laws too much. So we got our way around this embargo, and we had computers in the 80s. In Russia, it was harder. So the fact that the Spectrum was, they were able to assemble it from parts that they were able to get was significant. But the scene is strong there, and they actually did a lot of in terms of preservation of the Spectrum scene. Like even the Spectrum scene in Poland right now reaches out to the research that the Russian guys did. So it's pretty strong there.
Oh.
And in terms of reaching out to fringes, it's not. It's always tricky if you define something as fringe, because then you define yourself or another country as the core, right? So you can say there's some countries where there have been definitely more releases, but honestly, if I look on PUE and would go through all these countries, I would see so many countries I had no clue about that stuff was happening there, right? So I think this is like a tricky part to define it that way. And
but it's also a process point of view, right? I mean, Switzerland, for example, it's hard to get the application through the process in Switzerland. In Hungary, there's some reservations as to the relations with the officials, etc., right? Because you need to have a good communication path with the officials in your country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit of a co-representative for Switzerland here. So even though I'm German, I'm a member of Echtzeit Digitale Kultur, which is a Swiss organization for the Demoscene folks there. We were, in fact, we had plans to revitalize the Bünzli demo party this year under the label of Mountain Bites, which was supposed to be happening this very month. However, due to the external circumstances, which must not be named, we have postponed to next year. So the Swiss scene is quite active. I'm in touch with all the lead figures there, and everything is culminating around Echtzeit, and people are involved in all the matters. So we are in fact also working on the UNESCO application from Switzerland, and in fact, due to the fact that we have advertised the Mountain Bites demo party, we have gained a lot of traction and new members being flooded into Echtzeit. So we hopefully have some more hands to now work on the proposal. So there's great work going on. And in fact, there are very early coders in the demo scene, and even malware programmers have roots in Switzerland. So if you look into some of the stuff that was in viruses on Amiga, some of it even has its roots in Switzerland. So this may not be widely known. So.
Oh yes, I already did an interview about this topic, an historical interview about this topic. With somebody from with the graphic artist from Switzerland. So, and we all covered this whole Amiga virus story already, how it came to be, how it happened to be. So, but of course, I was aware that there are Demoscene parties and stuff in other countries. Actually, one of the main organizers of the party in France, some, 16 years ago when I was unemployed, she really tried to get me there. I'm like, yay, I'm unemployed. I don't really have the financial backup to travel anywhere. And she was like, yeah, we would even pay a plane ticket. Like, no. She said, yeah, right, a plane ticket. I was like, yeah. Anyway, and at some point I got an invitation to a Demoscene party in Moscow. So I was aware that there's something going on. But I mean anyway, from the average Demoscener or for the average retro fan, it's not like you could say out of your head, name a known Russian Demoscene group or name a Russian demo party. It's not like you would Russia would be among the first 5 countries or places you would connect a Demoscene with. At least that's my perspective. I don't know how you see it, AJ.
No, I agree. There's a lot of places where the Demoscene is not. You don't see anything really from them. Like Japan. Japan was, the C64 lived in Japan. The Amiga lived in Japan. It's an NTSC scene, similar to the US, and yet I've seen nothing. I've never seen a demo from Japan. I've never seen any Japanese demo groups, and or any kind of culture like that there. And the same thing with Russia. It's until we stumbled across it, I didn't know anything about
which was funny. Which was funny because we wrote to Yandex, and Yandex is like writing to Google and asking, hey, we saw you run a museum, can we interview you? And they were like, yes, of course, we want to reach outside of Russia. And there you have it, that was quite interesting. But prior to this point, I didn't even know there was something in Peru. And so I think if you want to make this as a UNESCO thing, you really should include perhaps those places that are normally left out for some reason.
Like the United States.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Well, the United States has a scene as well, right? But it's not so visible to be a little bit discreet about the terminology.
Which surprises me because, in its heyday, I'm still in touch with a lot of NTSC guys, and there's still a lot of activity in the NTSC world. It's just, for some reason, we always were considered a little bit behind everybody else.
But especially in the BBS times, I mean, many of the big BBSs were in the US. That's why you needed the calling cards and the phone phreaking and all of that. Because it was just impossible as a
I was told this project is a waste of time. I shouldn't even try. Because there's nothing going on in America.
Well, you have Synchrony, right? I was tempted on going to Synchrony, because it's so compelling to do a train ride from a major city in the US to Canada and then back. I love that idea, but it didn't work out. I think I was tempted in 2019, but it just didn't work out.
I think that's the only demo scene, the only demo party that we have in the US. Everything else is we're big on like user group meetings where
there's a MacFest as well. It's not the purely Demoscene, it's a gaming festival, but it has the Demoscene party part on top of it. So
yeah, I think that's also common. I don't know. I don't want to call it misconception, but I think it's different communities, the retro computing folks and the Demosceners. So the Demosceners are applying the technology still, while the retro communities celebrate the technology as such and want to keep it up and running and fool around with it. So I think it's even though they are kind of related, I consider them to be different communities. And the Demoscene is obviously those who still apply the old school tech and also the new school. So maybe we want to talk about that as well a bit, so that we have different kind of generations of Demosceners also that kind of make use of different types of technology. Yeah. So being maybe the shader coding is one of the top-notch things that is fairly new. So maybe Flopine can fill us in on how that works.
Yeah, she actually wanted to say something anyway because you started saying something.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back a little bit about the Japanese Demoscene. You have the Tokyo Demo Fest, which is quite big there.
Oh.
And you have a lot of demo sceners, like Japanese demo sceners, who, in my opinion, make really, really good content. You have, for example, FMS Cat, which is also someone who can see on the Shader Royale, for example, or Shader Showdown. And ironically, I think the pandemic helped us seeing more people, more nationalities with the shipped demos, because, like, for example, at Revision 2020, which was the big one, and that was online, everyone could participate because no one could be on site. So we even had shipping from IQ, for example, which is now living in the US, so he never came back to the Demoscene, kinda, but right with the pandemic, at least, we can't gather physically, but we opened up to a lot of new people that known about the Demoscene but couldn't afford going there and shipping something.
Right. Yeah, we did that with we had Gamescom earlier in the year, which is not Demoscene based, but it's it's a big convention in Germany that Joerg's been trying to get me to go to for years now, but it's just flight and the cost is prohibitive. And this year I actually got to go there, even though I was sitting right here. But it has been good for bringing people together in that way, to include people that normally couldn't get there, and also because people have nothing to do, so it's like you're sitting in your house. Oh, do some demo stuff.
But we found out online streaming is not less stressful. It's different kind of stress.
It's
a different kind of stress.
As an organizer, I can 100% say it's definitely not less work, because especially digital events, because usually also for a demo party, right? Usually when you open the doors, then you still have to maintain and host, but in the end, the magic happens by itself.
Yeah.
But online, you have to do every bit. Every bit you have to communicate. You have to make clear. Look here, look there. You have to move your audiences around. You have to ping, and it's beautiful in terms of regional diversity. It's definitely a super big chance of these days and times. It's also in game dev, not only in the demo scene. But yeah, the mental and emotional strain, how much it costs also to be present remotely, is also not to be neglected. Also for organizers, that's true. But Flopine, also maybe in the French scene, how is like the status there? There are still parties, so it's actually a pretty active scene, or how would you describe it at the moment?
I know for sure from other people that told me that the French demo scene is quite asleep, kind of, like, at least in its own country. We go to other demo parties organized, for example, in Germany, because it's like the door next.
Yeah, you can drive there.
Door.
Yeah,
totally. Or take a train or whatever. And so in France, we have maybe 2 or 3 demo parties a year. We have the VIP in Lyon, near Lyon, and we have the Alchemy in French, but
And the main demo party, right?
No, the main is not happening anymore, unfortunately. And in Paris, with the organization I'm in, the Cookie Collective, we try to organize at least once a year digital art festival inspired by demo parties, but without the competitive component of it. So to kind of open the demo scene and the demo party to more people from different perspective, because so we display demos and people can go there and give us something to display as a demo, but we just don't vote. We don't have vote systems and stuff like that. So not competitive. It's more like you project a lot of stuff on walls and you invite friends to do installation, real-time installation, and all of those combining to what we call a digital art festival, kind of.
Well, cookies.
Interesting.
Cookies sound like food for some.
Yeah. Yeah, but it just came out as the cookies you have when you visit a website.
Yeah, of course, I know.
That's just that actually. But when Cookie Collective organized the demo party, because before going for the Digital Art Festival way of doing it, we organized real demo party with competition. We had a food compo where we could you can brought like, I don't know, macaroons or whatever, something you cook for everyone. And
I mean the name cookies, it implies ideas, like today we have our guest star, the Cookie Monster from the Sesame Street or something. I would totally love that,
We could think of something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as a vegetarian, I'm also a little bit tired of the bratwurst competition every time at Evoke. So, as lovely as it is, but actually, it's a good inspiration maybe for the next physical edition.
Yeah, food combo is just more global, and you can brought vegan stuff or whatever,
I remember the at TUM party. I was usually at the TUM party. It was like barbecue meat competition or something, and then wow, that happened around the fire and stuff, and everybody.
Meat and beer is like every demo party that I see. It's like I've never gotten to go to one, and it's like, but every time it's just like beer and meat, and it's like, oh my god,
the fireplace.
This is a prejudice actually.
Yeah, the fart bubble above that place must be tremendous.
If you go to a revision these days, if it happens physically again, I think the most popular food stand is the vegan-vegetarian stand.
Awesome.
So you would be surprised. They have vegan burgers, which are absolutely stunning.
They are wrap. Oh gosh, they are awesome.
Absolutely awesome. And at the under construction, the ultimate meeting party, it's usually a schnitzel contest, like the cordon bleu contest. So that's very, very famous.
As I said, I remember that one. Yeah, I remember that one. And it was always donated by the guy from the Bünzli party from Switzerland. I forgot his name.
Unlock, maybe?
Probably Unlock, Andre.
Unlock from Andre.
President of Echtzeit, so.
Exactly.
Yes, Unlock is also helping like the Swiss application and involved into the mountain bikes, etc. Also to moving over the stick to the next generation in a sense. So he has been running stuff for many years together with Fred and some other people. And of course that's really what it's also about, right? To have also generational changes, and that there's, I mean, the old people still coming and also celebrating the way how we've been celebrating. It's not either or, right? And but also, yes, now there's also a vegan burger possible without being screamed at.
And Switzerland and Germany have cross-country collaboration. So another very active Echtzeit member is Shana. She has actually done great support for Art of Coding. I think she translated the whole German application in an English version so that others can also learn from the German application for the UNESCO. So I think that shows that the collaboration is going back and forth and between the communities and countries.
And Joerg, if I may add, as you have been asking about the fringes or mentioning, the process in a sense is it's not that we pick the countries where the application is happening. So it's more the other way around. We gathered as a group in Germany and in Finland to begin with, to kickstart something, to write the first application, etc. And at the same time, while we were writing these applications and gathering the first groups and went to the first demo parties to tell about this, it's really important that in all countries, people are volunteering by themselves to gather a group of people around to do the application on behalf of their own scene. And of course, the Demoscene is one scene, so there's not, I mean, there's the Demoscene, right? And there's many Demoscenes. But how UNESCO works is really, they think in countries. So you apply in Poland, you apply in Germany, you apply in Switzerland, and for that you need to be justified that you are from the, let's say, from the Hungarian scene if you want to do a scene in Hungary, and that makes total sense because it's about the culture, right? Not about an institution who puts applications everywhere. Mm-hmm. So if there's people in Russia or in
Peru was the other country.
Peru, that's a great example. Or yeah, exactly, in countries where we don't know, but also in Sweden, there's no active group right now. There's people who are interested, but definitely join our Discord, join the country groups where people are gathering, and then if there's a critical mass, some momentum starts happening, people start gathering, and then start running like applications in the countries.
So you mean I should get people in touch with you from those countries?
Well,
yes.
I'm fascinated by this because I don't know if we're doing if such a thing has been done in the U.S. as far as applying for that, and it's like that is totally something that, because demos, I've always looked at them as it's art, it's an art medium. And that's
it is.
People would ask me why are you keeping these old machines sitting in your room, and it's like, well, because that's just the tool that I use to create something, and it doesn't matter if it's a pencil or paint or whatever. It's like, this is art, and this crusty old yellowed C64 behind me is just how I get there, but a lot of people sort of dismiss that as like, it's just, you're playing with an old computer or something. And it's like, no, it's more than that. It's
even more than you say, because when you think of it, it's an actual culture, right?
Right.
I mean,
yes.
The Demoscene, especially that we like in Poland we wanted to as well. We formed a association. It's called Komitet Społeczny in Polish. So it's a little less than association, but it's like a more formal body that we started to apply to UNESCO. Mm-hmm. And we also do a bit of historical research. It started off as a kind of background for an application to have more content for the application, but then it's ended up being a pillar on its own, and it's fun. But one of the things we struggle with in a way is the borderline, where to draw this line in the sand when a scene actually starts and where a pre-scene environment is, right? Because if you look at it, the first productions were ripped music. There was some code. They were done by single authors. Many C64 productions, many Spectrum productions were just coder plus some ripped music plus some ripped graphics, and they were released somewhere, right, out to the computer fairs, spread it. There was no demo parties, there were no competitions, right? So where the scene starts. But when you think of the scene right now, and at least since like 91, I think in Poland we tend to say it's 87, but the first the demo party that had actual voting, which is also funny. Like when do you start counting demo parties, right? Because we had like computer gatherings or computer fun gatherings in 80s and early 90s, but right now we consider the first demo party to be in 91 because that was a event that had a big, well, not big screen because that was an Amiga, but it had like a central computer that you played demos on, and there was actual voting. So when you think of Demoscene, you have those rituals, right, which tell us apart from different cultures that, for example, every participant votes on a production, right? You usually don't have that in other places. you have like a body of qualified judges or something like that. Also, you have your own vocabulary, right? Which is one of the requirements for being considered a culture per UNESCO application, right?
You mean like Shrekmo, Mega Demo?
For example.
Lamers.
Ice coding.
Lamers, yeah, lamers.
So there's a lot to it, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's true. Well, I mean,
really quick before you say anything, Joerg. My dog can hear your dog through the headphones apparently, and he's very interested.
Okay, that might be a reason why she started barking a little.
We can make a pet podcast episode at some point.
Yes.
Just interviewing your pets. And,
well, I've done it. I've done that.
Oh, okay.
We haven't released it, but I've done it.
Oh, of course.
Anyway, what were you going to say, Joerg?
Yeah, I was going to say, I just saw as an example that there was one guy in Peru that kept the Demoscene parties together in Lima. You know, he was organizing all those little meetings, parties, where people would gather. And then he died because of an accident. And then the meeting scene kind of tried out. And that is why I kept asking this question: are you planning to include border countries? Because at some places like Peru, there's one person holding the line, and he disappeared, and suddenly things are fading away. And I think it's always a shock if in a country the culture is fading away. I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's one of the, if you look about why or what's the benefits of this application, that's one of the things. Of course, it is a living, breathing culture, but people also retire, are not coming back, throw their discs away. I mean, the whole discussion of bit rot, and so all that, what the preservation and museum has seen, or scene culture community is the right word, has as problems and as challenges and is tackling, counts even more for the Demoscene because it was so invisible in some regards. So I had no idea about Peru. But on the other hand, it's also clear that we are not scientists, right? So we are not writing the official history of the scene. Some of us, if it works in our country or it's important for whoever is doing that application. So, for example, as Andrzej, they are gathering a strong group to think about the history of the scene in the country. You can say more about that yourself, but for us as Art of Coding, at least, it is more this decentral approach. Let's tackle UNESCO. Let's tackle traditional cultural institutions with what about digital culture, right? That never been there's never been an application successful so far from a digital culture. There was a community around Wikipedia who was trying to build some momentum, but they didn't apply, and at least not that we know, right? And so this is more about, let's see how far we can bring the discourse and also see what the impact can be on the scene in terms of attracting new people and the heritage. And
I mean, attracting new people. Farine, from what I've read, you are kind of one of those that came in later, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps let's talk about the perspective. What was your reason to join the old heritage of Demosceners?
Well, actually, I think, unfortunately, and I hope it will change soon, that as many women in the Demoscene, I came with my boyfriend. I was brought to the Demoscene by my boyfriend at that time, and I was already doing some studies on 3D and code, but more about video games and stuff like that, like Unity and Unreal Engine, etc. To prepare for a career, and I just thought, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go. And he brought me to Revision 2016, and I got hooked. I can't explain why. I think I felt like home a bit, like instantly. So yeah, that's how I came to this oldish thingy. But I think I was also interesting by that because I'm the last of a brotherhood of three, and my two brothers are very, very aged compared to me. So at home we already had like Game Gear and stuff like that from my brothers, and I also evolved in the love of computers and, well, old machine, kind of like, for example, for me, Game Gear is old, sorry.
Yeah.
It is.
But yeah.
Hmm.
But you joined, but you took the stage pretty quickly, and you also became a role model for women in the scene, right? For
I hope.
pretty soon on as well.
Yeah, 2 years later. So I went to this event because of my boyfriend. But yeah, I had the chance to be around a good community. Like the French Demoscene community is really super. I don't know as much as I know about the French, about the others, but at least the French community was super welcoming and supportive. So I got the chance to do my own stuff in that mainly men community.
Well, you had a better start than myself. When I joined in '98, when I was 16, I was told many times I'm too young and have nothing to. I have nothing to bring to the
when I
table.
joined in like '92, they told
That's
me I was
sad.
too young and I was just a kid and couldn't do anything. So I mean, I think this is like just a universal.
Something old
too
people
young.
say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad it changes because, for example, one of the best 4K coders this last year is Slurpee, in my opinion. He was even enrolled in Alcatraz, and I think at that time he was 17 or something like that.
Wow. Oh. It's interesting because nowadays we have those interviews and people ask me, how did you get them? And I'm like, I asked.
Yeah, we want to talk. We are nice. We are friendly. We want to open. I think. As I talk with a lot of Demosceners during interviews or even on Discord channels or stuff, I think we all want to be more open, and we all want to share our love for coding, making art with machine, and being good or bad at it. That's not the most important part in the last years, I think. Just sharing and having fun and getting together with people that understand your passion.
That is a big difference that I have seen in the last, I'd say, 10 years or so of the demo scene, which is that I think it was in 2014 or maybe earlier than that, I put out a demo, my first demo in years. I hadn't coded for a long time. Yay. And it wasn't good. Because, I was way out of practice. I just wanted to use up some logos I had laying around from years ago. So I sat down and I spent, a day or two putting this thing together, and I released it. And back in 1998, I would have been crucified for putting this out, because it was two logos and a scroll text and some music. That's all it was. It was just I just want to use the pictures. They've been sitting on a disc for years, But now everyone's like, great to see you back. Yeah, cool old school demo, all this stuff. And it's like, not old school, it's just bad.
Yeah, hey, we had a similar experience last year with our last Discmac issue. We had so little amount of text because people were dropping out because of Corona, of the pandemic. Like, I have to focus on family and stuff. I can't provide anything. And we released it, and people were like, "Yeah, another Discmac issue." I'm like, "Yeah, it's small. It has way less text than usual, but people are still celebrating it. Like, but it's great. It's great you release something, anything."
Yeah, because
anyway.
it's better than nothing, I think. You know, like the same, what happened to Peru, if the scene there is really, unfortunately, dead, but we don't know, but
not
maybe...
dead, but I would say the leader of the push forward has...
Well, I think that a lot of the culture of the culture itself has changed, because back when it was largely competitive and people fighting with each other over stealing routines and this and that, and it could be a very toxic environment. And in the past few years, I think everyone has sort of realized that we're kind of a unique culture, and there's not many of us in the world.
I don't want to make it shallow, but it also has to do with the fact, I guess, that we were all 17 males back then.
That's true. That's true as well. That's also true.
And there wasn't that much exposure. I mean, it's, of course, nowadays there's much more exposure to cultural changes, as if you took a bus, drove to Denmark, have been partying for 3 days straight in a place, and then went back. I'm not to say that there. I mean, it has been extremely competitive for sure. I mean, all the debates between the groups, the dissing, the whole. Sometimes it was playful competition, but sometimes it was serious competition. I think for people who wanted to learn, there was always this thing. Yes, you could approach someone and to find out how a code works, etc. But as 16-year-olds, oftentimes that was definitely out of the question to lose this pride. So there was, I think, but this is like the part where the different parts of the culture definitely are to be discussed by historians, and also for us. What values do we provide? What values do we stand for, each of us individually nowadays? And how may they differ from what we were part of 20 years ago or 10 years ago? I think that's super clear. I mean, you've seen all the changes in tech culture, or still to be done changes in tech culture or business culture, and so we have definitely the same challenges and topics, I think, in the demo scene. I mean, it has been, as you mentioned, like in many cases, a white boys club, even though it was always so if you went there, it was, I think everybody will always tell the story of it was open for whoever approached to the doors, and everybody was welcome there. So it was not elitist or exclusive by itself for whoever went there. But there's a big difference between being welcoming and inclusive and not pushing someone away who is at the doors. Right?
It's funny you bring that up. The inclusiveness is that when I joined, I wanted to be a coder when I started, and I wasn't starting off with no knowledge of coding, and in the 80s and 90s where you can't just get the internet, it was very difficult, and most of the people that I interacted with were not really willing to, again, being 17-year-old kids, we're not really willing to share their knowledge and all that stuff. The guy that ended up teaching me to code was, like a 30-something-year-old, African-American guy that had been in the demo scene since the, mid 80s. And I mean, that, that's, who had kind of gone above that, gotten past that whole 17-year-old, I can't even think of the word for it. Just that
ego challenges.
Yes, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, and in that way, it is very inclusive of everybody.
But it's also, I mean, when we were thinking about so when this idea came up with Andreas Lange, who was actually the guy who was founding the Computer Games Museum in Berlin and was running it like for 20 years or so. So when we started with this idea, it was really also the question, okay, are we now endorsing everything which has happened in the Demoscene that way? No, we are only saying it is a culture, it has its changes, it has its flows, it has its streams. It has people who will say, I don't care about all these changes which are now in everyday's culture, and we just want to celebrate our way of thinking. And there's no way how you can or would define that differently, but even though if I myself stand for different values nowadays, of course.
Right.
And but for UNESCO, I think what eased me was if we should try it or what topics might come up during the application process. What eased me was actually UNESCO itself, because they were also saying, yes, now I have to use a German word. I don't know what Schützenfest is in English. So
we can look at the dictionary, no?
In the meantime, but in Germany you have like huge festive celebrations where everybody gets on the countryside, where everybody gets drunk for 3, 4, 5 days, and it's pretty traditional way of defending your home country, and it's like
I have it. According to the dictionary, it's referred to as fair featuring shooting matches.
All right.
What?
And there's
Wait. Hang on a second.
Shooting
there's like associations in every each village.
What's the word?
The translation is fair.
Yeah, I know what the translation is. I
Matches.
know what you said. The translation. What's the word?
Schützenfest. SCUUET.
Well, say SCU.
SCHUETZENFEST.
So you
Like
you
a
could compare that
shooting
maybe
Oh,
to
okay. It's a shooting festival.
shooting festival.
It's a very small version of the
Right,
Oktoberfest.
okay,
Maybe we
okay,
can
yeah,
say that.
gotcha.
There's associations behind it which are usually only allowing men to be part of it, right?
Yeah.
So many of the cultures which actually are on UNESCO lists of intangible cultural heritage have gender disbalances, to say the least, and all of these things. But UNESCO says, yes, it is a culture nevertheless, but of course we are encouraging the culture also maybe to pick up in time. And so this is like something, so they are not putting up this is culture or not based on the values which are there now, but it's culture based on the values which is happening within the culture. And then the question is, does it have traditions? Does it have specified knowledge? Does it have a passing of knowledge and skills? Does it have language, etc.? All these criteria which work. And so that way, I think at least we don't have to judge. So don't have to judge everything, at least not, are you now endorsing what was happening in Denmark in terms of the early 90s? No, we're not endorsing everything, but it is part of it, of the changes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yes.
What I find interesting in my life outside of the Demoscene bubble is the hilarious questions people ask me. I don't know if you know that, but I get that all the time. So people outside of the scene, when I say, for example, in 2013, I went 3 weeks to Peru, to Lima, to visit my Demoscene friends. And on the flight, there was a Peruvian family asking me, so how much languages do you know? And I said, like, English, German. And they were like, no Spanish? I said, no Spanish. You are going to Peru without knowing Spanish? You're out of your mind doing that, you know? You are out of your mind. I was like, yeah, well, all my friends know English. That's good enough, right? And the airport personnel knows English, obviously, because it's their job, so it's not a really big problem. Or people ask me, so you are talking to somebody in Poland. Do they speak German with you? I'm like, no, why should they? They speak English. So people are they are having stereotypes, prejudgments, and they are implying their little knowledge about I must have a problem communicating. I'm like, no, in the Demoscene we all speak English most of the time. It's not an issue. It's not even a question I would ask myself, I just talk to anybody. It's not like I'm going to write an email and think about it. What language could this person speak? I'm just write my email like I would to anybody else in English.
But when you say that, we also embraced computer networks pretty fast, right? FidoNet, BBSs, the internet, not mentioning swapping, which would blow probably most people's minds that we had a pretty decent network to exchange software in via email, via mail, right?
That was one of my first touching points, sending floppy disks.
Yeah.
I
remember calling up. I had a senior friend in Germany that would call me up, and he had a very he did not speak English very well, so he would call me up, and we would have a good hour-long conversation in which I understood none of what he said. And then
that must have been an exception.
Yeah, and
normally people understand each other.
And then it would end with we'd swap files, but what we'd end up doing is we'd get on our 64s or C64s, which were attached to we had modems, and one of us would do an ATA, one of us would do an ATDT, and we just connect and just swap files back and forth. Which that blew my mind for the time. Just like, wow, I can get a file from a dude in Germany in only an hour and a half at a blazing 300 baud because of his line noise.
I will never forget that moment when the first time there was a person, like a system operator, so a person running the BBS, was answering. So while I was uploading a DMS file to a Swedish BBS, because this was really this moment. I'm from the countryside. I just was lucky that in the next village, which was Paderborn, there was a huge IT university, which naturally attracted lots of people interested in IT and coding and tech. And so most of the people who were at least part of the German HowJob demo group actually gathered around Paderborn because of the university there, or have been growing up nearby, like XXX, like from HowJob, like the founder, Toby. And it is so hard. In that way, it's really like veteran. It's like grandpa telling from the war, right? You have these moments where you felt there were no Schengen, there was no euro, there were so many things not there, but you as a kid were sitting there connected to Sweden and someone was answering there. This moment when these first text messages came over, that's a magic moment, kind of.
That was like amazing. It's the early 90s, and I'm an American kid, like 13, 14 years old, and I log on to a BBS somewhere else in the world, and suddenly like the sysop pops in and he's like, hey, what's up? And it's like, oh my God, I'm talking live with a dude halfway across the planet. Which also messed up my BBS experience forever, because now every time I call a BBS, I'm completely self-conscious that someone's sitting there watching me.
And in the end, that's like the dopamine thing, right? Whatever hooks us that strongly, you will always remember it hooks you. Like Flopine was describing about 2016 at Revision.
Yeah, I'm hooked for life, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. I think seeing is believing, even in the old days and nowadays in the demo scene. If you join the crowd, I've perceived it as very open and diverse. So I was in fact at my first demo party at Revision in 2015, and I was hooked right away. I felt the atmosphere. I thought, well, even if I don't code and contribute with demo entries, I want to be part of it. I want to be there. I want to enjoy the artistic works. I want to feel the spirit and enjoy just being among these absolutely brilliant and talented people from all over the world. So I wanted to be there. So I and it was only a natural thing for me then to try to help to contribute to Art of Coding, because I thought I said, if this has this heritage and this has now evolved to this size and magnitude and inclusivity for people from all over the world, this is worth being the first digital culture recognized by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage, and that's the reason why I got connected and wanted to help. So, and this is the same thing. I mean, if the people are willing to communicate, everyone is willing to speak English, and even if you're from Paris, you probably switch to English. And I remember times when you entered Paris, you better had a little bit of French in your pocket.
Yes,
but now it's totally different, right? You go to Paris and you speak English, and that's the same with the Demoscene. All over the world, people talk English, and they are able to communicate, and they know the vocabulary that everyone uses. So it's brilliant.
You also have imposter syndrome towards the Dutch and towards the Swedes, etc. I mean, there was always someone speaking better English than you, and so that's
Honestly,
but their movies are not dubbed. They learn English basically from their childhood days, because they only watch undubbed movies with subtitles in their local language, and that's the reason why they are so excellent in English. That's what I learned a couple of years back. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, the Demoscene influenced me a lot personally by my, I would say, everyday life approaches. You know, just another example. I had this order by somebody living in France, you know, and the company shut down, the homepage shut down, the money was lost, and I was like, okay, $69 lost. And then I did some research and I found out, okay, the company has a registered address and a phone number somewhere in France. So I called that number, and normally I learned, you know, in business and everything, the first thing you ask when you call abroad somewhere, you say like, do you speak English? And my thinking was always, what if that person says no? What did I win there? I gain nothing if the person says no. So I had the $69 in my head that from the order 3 years ago that is lost, and I want my money returned because the order never came, the company went down, the money is lost. So I explained, I'm calling from Germany, I did this order 3 years ago and the company went down. Can I please speak to the CEO of that company? So, and this person,
you're going right to the top there.
After
straight
5
to the
minutes,
CEO.
After 5 minutes, she even didn't get a chance to tell me if she speaks English or not. So she just replied like, "Sorry, he's not around right now. I can't do it." I was like, "Okay, I
can't get over that audacity. That's like, you know, my Windows install doesn't work. Can you patch me through to Bill Gates?"
Anyway, it was my approach to get my money back, and so I said like, okay, so when he is available again, and she said like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so I'm calling next month again until finally he is available. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, reply regarding your order and your phone call to my parents' home. I was like, oh my God, I spoke to his mom. And I told his mom I will call every month until this is resolved and I get my money returned. So I spoke to his mom, and his mom speaks fluent English, obviously, for some reason.
So basically, if you want to get UNESCO to accept the Demoscene as a thing, just have Joerg do it because he's relentless.
Yeah. Anyway, the story is sense. Anyway, the story has a good ending. After 4 years, the game that I ordered was finally released, and I got it before Christmas. And everybody was like, "Why do you call to friends? They will not even answer you." they wouldn't even bother trying speaking English with you. I'm like,
What?
I don't care.
No. That's not true. That's such a stereotype, and it drives me nuts. No, if you
Exactly.
if you go in there and you expect them to speak English, they'll be slightly rude to you, but they'll relent. If you try,
I never try speaking.
Just go in there, speak bad French.
Make funny faces
I'm this kind of person. I don't try speaking.
Because
badly
I have
in a
this
language.
experience with Canada, which is largely French, and there's a lot of stereotype around the French and French Canadians that they will not speak to you in anything other than French, and it's like no. Well, obviously, right now because we're speaking to someone from France, and she's very nice at speaking to us in English. But I have, in my experience, it's like if I you go there and it's like just don't be rude and expect them to know English.
Well, then I'm rude and I expect.
Yeah, but I just I say 3 words badly.
It counts for all the places, right? It counts for all the places.
Well, then I'm rude.
Everybody upped their games. I mean, if you went to the German countryside, you also had probably not really good chances.
Right.
20 years ago, my parents don't speak English.
Yeah.
If I went to, there's so many places. It is still a privilege in a sense, and this privilege of learning a language is learned over the
I went to French Canada and I tried to communicate and they just sort of patted me on the head and they were just like, don't try, son, don't try.
But I'm also biased. I love Montreal and Quebec City and all these places.
Perhaps I'm different. Perhaps I'm different because I'm.
But you're also talking about a text, like you're talking about like a call line, like an international line where people would be calling in. So yeah, in that instance, you're gonna expect them to do that. But just meeting someone on the street and expecting them to automatically speak the same language as you in a country that is not your own is not necessarily.
It happened to me.
What are we talking? Why are we here? How did we get here?
I was. We got here because I was talking about the perception out of our bubble from other people outside.
Okay.
And I was saying that it influenced my behavior outside of the Demoscene because I don't really bother or really think about if somebody understands me. I just talk in English and try my luck. That's basically how I do it. If somebody sees it as rude, up to them. But I'm not going to try to speak in a language I badly know or not at all.
This is a huge privilege because we grew up with technology, we grew up with the net, we grew up with English language. It's natural for us, and it's not necessarily natural to other people still. So
true.
But maybe let's look at this language thing from a totally different angle. Obviously, the UNESCO applications have to be filed in the nation's language. So the German entry has been filed in German, the Finnish one, and we can talk a little bit about the successes that have already been rolled in. The Finnish one has to be handed in Finnish, the Polish one in Polish, the French one in French. So I think what we are talking here is we are even united as a culture and talk the languages or the language of choice of the people who want to get together. But the local applications have to be handed in the local language.
Interesting.
Maybe from a and that was also the reason why I said we had helped to translate the German one into an English version so that it is basically accessible to everyone else in the Demoscene.
Interestingly, those applications, each one of them is different. So Finnish applications has different sections that German application, which unfortunately doesn't help with Polish application too much because we have like 50% of content is different.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you just copy and paste it. I think it's just of looking at how people expressed the evolution in their local country. So I think that helps. And in general, I think it sees that we have some success with it because the Finnish application, which was the first one, was in fact accepted by the UNESCO. So I think that's if you want to talk about what we have achieved so far, maybe for a bit. the Finnish entry was a huge success. So it was accepted on the national list of intangible cultural heritages.
Mm-hmm.
And in Germany, we have had the success that one of the states where it was submitted has accepted it for submission to the national list, which is obviously the big answer we are waiting for later in the first quarter. So maybe we can look at what has happened so far, and maybe Melchior can give us a bit more insight into that.
If we look at the successes, there is like the what Kudrix already mentioned, but there's also groups now coming together. So in France, in Denmark is a group even supported by the Royal National Library, for example. So oftentimes there's even bigger preservation institutions which are hoping that there is groups in the countries actually filing those applications because they would be ready to jump in as partners, etc., to safeguard these applications. So, for example, if there's then the need or the idea to have an exhibition on the Danish Demoscene, that's of course great if you have an institution already who says, yes, of course, please, we support this. But they are, of course, not allowed to do the application because they're institutions, they are not Demoscenes, right? Mm-hmm. So it has to be from the scene, for the scene, by the scene. Also from UNESCO standpoint.
How much countries did you get covered so far? I mean, you mentioned Finland, you mentioned Germany, France, Poland.
Yeah, covered. I mean, really that the application is submitted. So in this final stage, and we're waiting for feedback, that's really like Germany and Finland. Finland is successful. In Germany, we will know in March, probably. So we will get feedback by then. And it's usually like a process of 2 years until getting the people together, etc. And then now it's like the second wave happening in a sense, that based on the success and being convinced and getting the group together. So there's now a group in France meeting. There's a group in the Netherlands interested in checking in. There's a group, I mean, yeah, Andrzej is here from Poland, so that's like in a very active state. There were people interested in Portugal, but interested really means someone said at a party, yes, I might be interested, and then it can die down again. Usually, I mean, especially during COVID, I was actually surprised how dependent we are as humans in a Demoscene also from this meeting on physical parties, right? Yeah. You need this moment where you know, oh, now is Evoke, so I should better get going because I have a month left to get something done. Otherwise, I won't look too good if I have nothing to show. And
also, you need to keep in mind it wasn't the greatest year to make ambitious goals in your life. So that's the other thing. But yes. There's the Finnish success was a game changer in a way, and interestingly, the Finland was probably the most ready to accept as a country because they're pretty progressive anyways, like they've always been.
Right.
So that opened door, and when we, for example, started talking with our government and the Ministry of the former Ministry of it's the Digital Ministry, or I've been not sure how it's called in English exactly, but it's no longer there. But there's a Ministry of Culture as well. We've been talking to them. They've seen that. So that is important, that they've seen it was accepted already, and they liked it, right? So it opened a lot of doors, and it showed that it's possible, and it's worth the hassle. So that's great, actually.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, exactly, Switzerland. I didn't. So I was going in alphabetical order. I skipped. So Hungary is also, but Unjello mentioned. So there were definitely also people there, actually, also from people around the function. So really one of the most relevant parties in the scene, or also strong always release country, I would say. Strong releases, so that would be and yeah, like Switzerland. There's also a few people scattered from Australia, but it's more in they're checking in, and it's in this early stage. But our idea as leaders organizers was, okay, let's at least have one country from the north, one from the east, one from the west/south. Yeah, and so one from the west and one of the south. Yeah, in that sense. So that's at least our minimum idea for the formal. So minimal idea. For the formal application, actually, we only need 2 countries to be able to go to the next level. But we are not sure that would work. So that's why we really believe, also from a Demoscene's perspective, it should be at least 4 or 5 countries which represent the different areas. And then if there's more, of course, but I think after, let's say, 6 years, it's probably a moment where we want to be. So we're not yet 6 years in, we are now 2 years in. So our idea spawned like December 2018, I guess. And then May 2019, we started sharing that with the scene, and from there, sometime around that. But yeah, there's definitely more countries. So I was just looking at, so what's a big missing point is definitely, I guess, UK. That has also such an intertwined Demoscene meets games culture, meets visual live performances run by Demosceners. I mean,
definitely.
It had such a strong influence. Yeah, and then the Nordic countries. I mean, yeah. But for us, again, it's a volunteer project. Oh, that's super important to say, right? So when we started, also, it was always, if you do something for the scene, it has to be for free, because that's like Demoscene ethics. You don't take money away from stuff what other people are creating also for free. And that's why also we have, of course, to be a little bit cautious about our time. So yeah, but the more countries, again. So if you are interested, there is the website Demoscene, the art of coding.net. And there, if you go on to contact, under contact, you will find a link to the Discord, for example, and that's where the country channels are. And also you can poke us and other contact details. Yeah. So yeah, these are the countries.
Interesting. And do you know how long in average it will take till it is successful, if it is, which is hopefully will be?
I mean,
you mentioned 6 years before.
Yeah, in that sense that we will actually sit down to see, after we have the German feedback, what the next phases will be. But all the countries which are now in this already rolling state, so like the 4 or 5 countries I mentioned, so Switzerland, Poland, France, Netherlands. I probably forget one because I clicked the list anyway.
About Italy. Maybe
yes, there's
Italy as well.
All of them, of course, we want to see that is happening. So, and happening means it usually takes 2 years in that country as well, because one example in Netherlands, for example, you have to go to workshops first, and you get a briefing by the government how this should be done. In Finland, you had to create a wiki article where many sceners are involved. Or in Germany, you had to go via the region, one of the regional bodies, like the Länder, like the countries, and had to apply there. And then there's like a 2-stage process. And in Switzerland, Andre, you can say that for yourself.
Well, yeah, I think you have to be on one of the local lists first, and then you may or may not be promoted to recommendation for the national list at some point. I don't know the exact details to be honest. I think this took also a little bit of momentum out of this because it was so cumbersome and unpredictable, so that we said okay, we have to do our groundwork first. But I think we are getting there. So this also shows, like Melchior said, it's totally different everywhere. And sometimes you have to go to great lengths to make it happen, and it's not even granted that you are successful. So,
and
in
they
Switzerland,
don't
for
have,
example,
sorry.
If you talk about Schützenfest and stuff like that, they have things on their national list like Aare schwimmen, which is a very, very cool thing. I highly recommend it. It's in the city of Bern. You go to the river Aare and you swim in the Aare. And this is recognized by UNESCO as a cultural heritage. So just to give you a feeling of the other stuff that's on there, but it shows that you can have success if you do the things right. And this is also always our call. People get informed. We will help you as good as we can, and we will support the matter and help to get you on track and also get the good word out to get you more support if needed.
Well, hopefully we help with this podcast to get the word out.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons we are also wanted to reach out to you guys to reinforce the momentum. I think the momentum is there. Every time we talk about it at one of the Demoscene events, we usually get people being spilled onto our Discord channel and asking questions and get in the country specific rooms or ask if they want to or can create a new room for a new country and so on. So and I think we have to continuously foster this momentum and make people just also a little bit deadline driven, get their applications out. So I think that's exactly the thing we want to facilitate. Yeah, and we are actually also always looking for volunteers who want to basically increase outreach and cascade the information. So we have people who write blog posts and articles and do this like we do here now, the podcast. I have represented Art of Coding at a conference which was online at last year, British Math Art Conference, and just recently in the German Return magazine, which is a retro magazine, we featured an article about Art of Coding. So if you have ideas where you want to present this topic and increase the outreach, then please join us and well, just we'll get it going. So we depend on the community contributions basically everywhere.
Exactly. I will definitely put, when the podcast is out, put it in the Peruvian C64 Amiga Demoscene group, because I'm a member on Facebook there. They invited me, so I will definitely make it visible there. Let's see, perhaps somebody is contacting you about
and the US guys, AJ.
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah. I just joined the Discord.
That was the thing. Nice.
Now with the new president, the chances are higher, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
And
I mean,
if you're wondering what it means, when we say, hey, we need a group, so usually we need one person in a country who says, okay, I look up at the website of UNESCO what's actually needed, because again, in every country it's different, but it's not impossible. And then really say, okay, we have like a list of, we call that country contact points. So that's like to be that one person. If other sceners are interested, I can get in touch with that person. Because usually we need that one first person in Sweden, in UK also, who says, yes, I'm just looking into it and I will keep on it also to poke people from time to time or check with us as organizers if we stall. So that's actually what we need, and
And as you mentioned, bit rot. Like this stuff doesn't last forever, and
exactly. I think everyone has her or his own motivation why to join the crowd. So I think everyone would like to have some kind of official recognition. Maybe some even don't, but actually I think it would help the scene to also prolong the culture and do the preservation work for the stuff that the really old schoolers need for producing their demos or demonstrating their demos. So I'm from my personal standpoint, I'm one of the big proponents of preserving the old tech hardware stuff. So I'm a big fan of that. So if this is successful and UNESCO recognizes the Demoscene as cultural heritage, then actually I think we have much bigger chances of getting funding for doing preservation really right with lots of funding, and not being dependent on some wealthy people to support these efforts. I appreciate lots of definitely what Archive.org and the team are doing there, but obviously this is a one in a million thing, right? So I hope that we will have the chance to get official funding for doing the preservation work, which the scene deserves. So
plus Archive.org is not really, they're not focused on any one individual thing. So, it's sort of like they've got like a shotgun approach where it's like everything. So it's, actually having somebody Demoscene based that is trying to preserve this and doing.
I love what they're doing. So definitely, it's great.
What you need to realize as well is that. It's getting lost, right? It's the Archive.org. They won't have access to like old floppy disks or the people. You need to reach out to people. Many of them are not interested anymore. Like the people from the 80s we reached out to, they were like, "Oh, I grew up. It wasn't serious. I don't care. I don't want to talk about this anymore." It's sad in a way. So I'm hoping, for example, that this recognition will kind of maybe make them change their mind a little about this. But we are, chasing down people to find the floppy disk in the attics, right, and stuff like that. So, and as Kudrix said, this is volunteering effort right now. But once we get recognized, we may get like a Danish library, or we have in Poland Museum of Computer Science and Computers that we may partner with, and they may get funding, and this can actually get serious, right?
I mean, we also must see that there's a next generation coming up, Yeah. And we want to preserve that for them,
Well, and I like the fact that you've also, you mentioned on the website, specifically it says, despite the title Art of Coding, it's important to be aware that the Demoscene is not just demos and coding, but it's music and it's graphics and it's photos and it's text art, like ANSI ASCII or like, Petsky or whatever, all that stuff. Because that's a big, that's something that I've often been guilty of sort of neglecting a little bit. Like I was a graphics guy and a coder, or still am a graphics guy and a coder. I've done a lot of Petsky graphics for BBSs, and it's sort of like I've got discs upon discs upon discs of it. It's just been kind of throwaway stuff because it wasn't something that I necessarily considered like Demoscene worthy. It was like I just made some words on the screen out of, whatever, but it's like, yes, this is a part of the thing that should be preserved. This is something that is you might have seen it once on a BBS back in the 90s when you logged in, and
but here's the point. Here's the point actually, where some projects really have an issue. I mean, we mentioned Pue or Puet. I don't know how to pronounce it. Pue in the beginning, and then there is this other thing, CSDB, Commodore Scene Database, and everybody is like, if I mention it just because they have such. I mean, they started in 2001 being open for everything basically, and they narrowed down more and more over the years. What is preservable, worthy, what is worthy to be in the database. You can only get a user account if you were credited in a Demoscene worthy release.
The moderators of the CSDB are the guys that are still 17 years old in 1993. I mean, that's...
And that's definitely, I'm very happy that you mentioned like the different arts which all go into the Demoscene. So that's super important first and foremost. AJ, that's true, because otherwise, I mean, yes, the title we put Art of Coding because that's the one defining thing to the outside, what people at least understand. Okay, it's about shader, it's about minimalism, it's about... So people, the first thing what people always understand is 4K, right? So you can explain that, and that's like the super big wow effect. But this is like the tip of the iceberg, and that's, I think, what the demo scene is, and it's really pushed by so many movements underneath. And so I think this is really, it's the preservation, but also, again, the living part of it. So as Flopine was describing, or we've been also discussing, it's really about how could be the demo scene alive in 20 years, and who is actually doing competitions, who is playing with a playful attitude in the future, because we have generated this democratic, this anarchic, this decentral, this completely unregulated thing. And I hope that is also because this can work. This is a culture. This is not depending on the discs, etc. It's really one unique way.
Right. Exactly, and this also shows the evolution again. Like, look, these next generation categories haven't been around forever, right? So I think the latest addition to the compos is basically something which is really interactive, like Shader Showdown. So you have totally different iterations of technologies and competition categories. So I think this is also the brilliance of the theme, the scene, that it kind of reinvents itself with an underlying technology pool, which also keeps on growing ever and ever. So in 20 years from now, we will have totally different categories of old school hardware, because old school hardware is then, I don't know, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, and all this kind of stuff, which is not hacked yet. So it's even not open for coding yet, because it's still encrypted and not broken. So I think we have an ever increasing pool of platforms that can be fed into the demo scene world. So I think that's so cool, and it basically, if we make it right, it will never stop. And even if the scene was declared dead multiple times, it's far from dead.
Right.
Without mentioning also the virtual consoles like Pico 8, for example. You see some Pico 8 demos now, and demo parties start to ask themselves, like organizers of demo parties start to ask themselves, should I put a Pico 8 category? Is it old school? Is it not? Okay, it's limited, but it runs on the PC. But even if those questions are still asked among people in the demo scene, organizer, whatever, people still do Pico 8 demos, and it's new, it's exciting, and it has this old schoolish style you can play with, but it's still easier to get into, which is, in my opinion, super important to have as a compromise.
Yes.
Maybe putting limits, it's super interesting. I think, in my opinion, how I see the demo scene is just like putting yourself your own technical limits to play with them, and something like Pico 8, I think, has a huge potential.
Yeah.
In that regard.
I mean, this limitations-driven platforms, they are constantly coming up. I mean, I remember some years ago when it was said, like, Wolfenstein 2 and the new Doom, that can't be put on the Switch. And then there was panic button, and they said, like, we make it possible, you know, special technique for compression and stuff. And then suddenly this Demoscene vibe game release on the Switch was there. Everybody was like, wow, Doom, it's amazing. Wow, Wolfenstein, that's incredible, you know. And it was just basically using all techniques that we know from the demo scene.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the average layman that buys a Switch game, he wouldn't know about the technical achievement to bring this game on a little Switch handheld. He couldn't care less. But on the root, it's still the same technique. It's still the same art of coding.
Yeah,
honestly, some of the best porting studios are actually also founded by Demoscene, or at least some of them. Think of our Dutch friends.
There is a lot of bridges between Demoscene and video games industry, definitely.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the hopes, right? I mean, that people hear this and see, okay, with my mindset, actually, that's also why not joining the scene and do some demos for this playful attitude. And I think there's a change that we are now more open and actually, more open, more diverse, because that way it makes us also more welcome and approachable than 15, 20 years ago.
And what I realized also, like month ago, is that I think the Demoscene helped me getting in touch with old hardware I had when I was a kid, and I played on, but now I get to play it on again, but in a different way. So it's kind of connecting my nostalgia for those with my new way of seeing things.
Yes.
And I think that's also an important part of the Demoscene, which is like having fun with what makes you having fun in your childhood, like that in another way. I think it's also interesting in that point of view. And I think as a new generation are born with technology, I think that's also a good way to approach them, to enroll them, kind of. Not enroll, but at least saying that, your N64 on which you played Super Mario 64 or whatever, people knows how to code a video game on that. People knows how to put 3D on that, how to render your texture. It's awesome. You can now play with your own mode if you learn enough to do them or whatever. And it's a huge opening of your technology knowledge. And I think it's also important to connect yourself with what is around you, which is usually the hardware, kind of. I know it's a bit like meta or philosophical, I don't know, maybe too much. But I think it's important to know what is inside your daily life, and for example your smartphone, your computer, and you get a better, it's empowering to know what's inside your computer and how it works a bit, and how it worked previously, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. With the C64, I know what every chip in that thing does, and and how to manipulate it to do what I want it to do. Now, back in the early 90s, I wanted to upgrade my C64 to an Amiga, and I saved up money for, because I was a kid, I was saving up my lunch money for months and months and months, and I finally had enough to get that Amiga 1200, and then Commodore went bankrupt, and so I never got it. And so maybe 2 years ago, I guess, I finally got an Amiga 500, and I am learning it the way that I would have learned it back then, which is to try to use it and try to do things with it. And it's ended up, I've upgraded it a bunch. There's, it's got an accelerator. I've gotten it onto the internet with a flip box and all this stuff, things that it wasn't meant to do, but I'm trying to figure it out in, without the I'm trying to learn how to use it without using an emulator, without cheating or anything, sitting down and actually trying to figure out how to use the actual machine to code and create artwork and stuff like that. And that's a thing that with a lot of people now, their phones, I don't know what's on my phone. I wish I did, and it's or the my laptop, the bits and pieces in that are, the level of knowledge I have on that is far less than I have on these old machines.
Yeah, and maybe if I quickly can join in here, I think this was exactly the tipping point between the generation of a C64 and an Amiga. Mm-hmm. The C64 was still a device where you could basically understand everything it does. Mm-hmm. With an Amiga, it's getting more difficult. And then imagine where we are at today.
Yeah.
So the complexity is absolutely a nightmare. That's the reason why we have layers upon layers upon layers, because no one understands what's happening in the depth of the machine anymore. So I think, and I'm a big fan of reducing the complexity again. So that's probably also what connects my job and the Demoscene. But this is absolutely a nightmare. So I think it's much more challenging to do stuff with a less powerful machine.
Yeah, there's so many layers of and that's one of the things. Even with the Amiga, there's abstraction layers between between me and the machine with the 64, in BASIC, you're poking values directly to memory and changing things about the machine. With this, you've got a user and you've got a GUI in front of you. You're not immediately like you can tell it to do stuff, but it's got to go through that abstraction layer first, that OS that's built into it.
But there's a couple of things to it. Like I personally gave up around, I think, 2002 maybe. Intel had this thing that they had a contact form, and if you ask them politely, they would ship the CPU manual to you at no cost. And I actually done that in 96, maybe 97. And I was given like 2 books, maybe 200 pages each. And then I did the same thing in 2002, and I was shipped 8 books, 600 pages each. And it was like a tipping point for me because, you couldn't understand it anymore.
Right.
But also you need limits for your creativity. Like if it's limitless, you won't get creative. PCs right now, those phones, this everything, there's almost no limits.
Right. This is where things like Pico 8 become useful tools, because they put those, they create those limits that you have to work within. And this was like early cell phone stuff too, which was, I don't know if you guys remember, flip phones when you were first starting to get the little things, and suddenly a lot of people that were C64 or Amiga graphics people and coders, they were in demand because they knew how to code this stuff down to be like, a 3K program.
But also there was no C compiler for it.
Right.
I remember the first Symbian coding, it was pure assembler. So.
Right. Yeah, and making little icons on the screen and everything. It was like, this is what we were born for, But that quickly, spiraled out of control and stuff. To where
that's your moment.
Yeah. For a very short moment in time, it's like it was like, yes, this is what we've been training for, and then it was like suddenly iPhone. Oh yeah, okay, we're out.
I just see an advertising in front of my eyes. Want true digital creative literacy? Join the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting thing that I actually and we'll cut this part out because it's irrelevant. But it actually my actual job turned into like a scene thing, because we run our general ledger on a machine that is running CPM. I don't know why, because they've been doing it forever. They've got this thing hooked up to this old dot matrix printer, and they print out a ream of paper every month. It's ludicrous. So people are working from home because of the coronavirus thing. But this general ledger still needs to get done. Well, you can't. CPM doesn't exist on the internet. Like there's no networking on CPM. You can't do that. But I'm like, you know what? CPM CPM runs on an old Commodore 128, and it does have the ability to use a modem, and there are 105,000 different types of these little Wi-Fi modems for the C64 that emulate a regular Hayes modem. And so I ended up, I'm in the process of developing a CPM module that will let them connect to this thing over TCP from an outside computer to do the general ledger from just like a terminal on their Windows machine. And this is all stuff that like I wouldn't know how to do this if it wasn't for the Demoscene.
True.
If it wasn't
but
for
they hired the right guy.
That's a great point, because the Demoscene is also about DIY approach and can-do attitude in a way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
100%.
taking the limitations of the machine also and throwing them out the window.
Yeah,
Of course, that's why people also sometimes. So I mean, if you talk to many coders, they also were always saying, I mean, the art thing, we never saw it as art. Oftentimes in the 90s, actually, the scene never wanted to be seen as media art because it was really far away from that, and Actually, it's more about this can-do attitude, this pushing the boundaries, finding out it by yourself. And this is a mindset, and that mindset is, of course, that is then connected with mindsets, for example, from the hacker culture or other connected communities. That's super important, right? We don't say, also again on Art of Coding, we're not saying we are the first proponents of course not. We are embedded into other cultures which have been around, like the BBS, like communities, like early Telnet culture, etc. The whole web-based or interconnected culture that has been there, that has been around. The whole open source, in a sense, was always a little bit a tricky relationship, because in the scene it was like, yeah, open source kills the competition, doesn't it?
Right.
But it changed as well, right? Fabrauch started releasing their source codes, and many other groups as well. And since Shaded Toy, that's no question. So the aforementioned IQ created actually Shaded Toy, or was one of the people behind it. So that changes. Again, but it is a mindset, and that mindset is so helpful in nowadays environments as well.
Yeah, I think this is exactly where it boils down to, where the connection points are to the original meaning of the term hacker, because a hacker is, according to the hacker ethics, a person who is very savvy with a certain piece of technology and brings it to its limits or beyond. And so actually you find this kind of attitude, as Melkor describes it, exactly in the Demoscene, because you bring a machine to its limits and boundaries, and you basically exploit stuff that no one else knows. And this is, per definition, a hacker in the original sense. So I think the term hacker has been kind of misused and used for bad reputation things in the recent times. But if you look at the original literature and interpretation and definition of hackers, it's exactly the same as a Demoscene guy.
You're right, exactly, and I can now say that I'm getting my actual job is being. I was promoted from being basically a social worker to now I am. I'm basically a demo coder for my job.
Now you're taking social care about the elder.
Yeah, I don't work with people anymore. Now I just play with this old hardware all day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Man, we are pushing here 2 hours. Oh my god. And I guess we could do another 3.
Honestly, yeah, you could with what the Demoscene is and the depths of it and what it means to people. I mean, it's a. I mean, we could talk for days about this.
True.
And actually, with I guess another 5 different guests from the 5 different countries, right? Because we were also who's joining which countries. I mean, this is really just a small glimpse. I mean, and not a full representation. So this is also. But
definitely.
I think that got clear today.
Definitely.
Yeah, maybe
and in the process, as AJ mentioned, Japan before. Now, thanks to Florine mentioning some names in Japan, perhaps I should do some research there.
Get on that, son.
And see if we can get somebody talking in English to us. From Japan. Why not? Yeah, let's try that. I don't know if you could. I don't know if you are willing to write perhaps the names you had in mind, Florine, but perhaps it would help.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. I will write some names on the conversation on the chat.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I know one guy from the Japanese Demoscene, but I know Xavi from Control Alt Test worked for Square Enix in Japan for many years. He's a French guy and French Demoscener, and he knows a lot about Tokyo Demo Fest. So I encourage you to write to him. So he speaks good English. No problem with that.
Okay.
Good English, good Japanese, and good French. So
as we learned, I don't even ask. I just talk to people in English. That's my way of approaching people. Even if I'm told I'm rude, I don't really mind that.
Guys,
as long as I reach my goal, I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
And guys, if you're interested in doing maybe a primer on the Demoscene, I think we now basically circle in the depths at some extent, and being very specific in some areas for art of coding. Sure. If this is interesting to your audience, I think we will probably be able to assemble another round of people
we can do a
can also tell a bit about their coding.
If everybody if everybody is agreeing on joining us again, certainly.
And we could actually do a proper video call with demos and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that would warrant a video call. Then I think that.
And I'm waiting for the Game Boy demo on the cartridge someday. I expected a little parcel from France there.
I hope to get it at some point. Yeah, I really want to do it and to finish.
Well, actually, it's interesting. I mean, AJ mentioned it. We had a couple of tries there, and people were telling us, "No, I'm too young to talk about this topic," and stuff. So, and then some people were agreeing, and then in the last moment changing their minds and saying, "No, find somebody else who can talk about this topic better than me." I'm like, what? So I'm really happy we got this mixed round and all those perspectives, newcomers, elite sceners. I don't want to say old guys, so...
none of us are old. We're all young, sprightly.
Well seasoned.
Yes, there you go.
Exactly. So I'm really happy. I'm really happy this finally happened, because Tobias was asking what took you so long. It's just humans are sometimes difficult and they can change mind quickly,
Especially these days, but I think now that the winter is over, vaccines are out, I'm so much looking forward to the energy this will bring in
that's true.
21 and also 22.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we've already covered where people can go to find out about Demoscene, the Art of Coding, and what you're doing. So where can people follow you guys individually? And I guess we'll just start with whoever wants to start.
So people can follow me on Twitter at Flopine Yay, Flopine Yay, and also on ShaderToy at Flopine. I have a user account on ShaderToy when I put every shader I made with the code, so it's open source to anyone who wants to play with it, use it, or whatever. I put it under the based license from ShaderToy, which is the Creative Commons 0, I think, something like that. So you just have to give credits, but you can do whatever you want with them.
Cool. Okay, so I'm UNJELLO Unjello on Twitter, and I guess anyone interested in the Polish application should also check out kskpd.pl. This is a website for our Chronicles of Polish Demoscene Association.
For Demoscene, so if you want to see at least the timely updates, I mean, the Discord we covered already, but if you just want to follow it via Twitter, at least where you have the bigger announcements there on the Twitter stream. That's also at Demoscene_AOC for Art of Coding. So at Demoscene_AOC, and my own Twitter, which is a mix of game dev, travel, and Demoscene, is under at Dedux, DEDUX. That's Tobias.
Yes.
Yeah, and for Kudrix, it's KudrixD at Twitter, so KUDRIXD. And if you want to follow the Demoscene and Demo Party mountain bites in Switzerland, you should look at the Twitter handle Backbites, which is BERGBEIZ. So, and there is another one for the Echtzeit in Switzerland. But if you follow this one, you have the chance to visit one of the next demo parties coming up in early 2022.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, let's not make too much travel plans for this year yet, right?
Yeah, we just postponed to next year. So
yeah, that's why I was also wondering if I should announce Evoke or not.
Yeah, Evoke, maybe, sure. Yeah.
So it's at Evoke_EU. That's like the party run by Digital Kultur e.V. for 20 years now.
I know. Martin Wisnowski, Notepond, is one of our graphic guys. So
I saw it on your website. Yes, amazing.
Yeah,
He's fun.
Yes, he is.
You know,
We should, Joerg, we should actually revisit the Cookie Collective at some point in the future, because I'm just looking at the Twitter for it and it looks really cool.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff that are really cool, in my opinion.
Sure.
We have a lot of people who are great, like a good community, and people who do amazing stuff. Newson is part of the Cookie Collective, for example. Coltes and Punk, who I think were second in the 4K category in Evoke 2018 or 2017, something like that. Oh. So yeah, we have great people.
Yeah.
Everybody is great, except those people who are not great. You know, but I guess the thing in all cultures.
Are still in their 17 in their mind.
It's a thing in all cultures. There are always nice people and not so nice people.
Yeah.
Always like that. Okay, well, we already arranged. We will do a follow-up, speaking more about the Demoscene in the future. So, hey, I'm looking forward seeing you all again at some point. And let's hope we all stay healthy until then.
Yes,
absolutely.
This was really, time flew quickly.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for your time and your interest as well. So
no problem. Yeah, I talked about this with Andre so often, and then Corona came and was like, now is the perfect time, you know.
Well, actually, I think we discussed it end of 2019 already.
Perhaps.
And then we basically lost track throughout the year, and then we revisited this in our Christmas mails in 2020, and now we're here finally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So hopefully see you guys sooner than 2 years from now.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. Right? The story continues. We will have updates, and there's always more things to weave in. Actually.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty.
Great.
So I could almost say good night for us Europeans here. Oh my God.
True.
Yeah.
Enjoy your evening.
I'm definitely gonna go to sleep.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.